Hello. One of the things I said, if you watched the other video about kind of what we're going to be using this YouTube channel for, so we uploaded that video. It's got a little bit of news and stuff on it, and then I uploaded a video on Friday about how we're going to, sign out and bring back and do the St. Vincent de Paul Pilgrim statue. And another thing I said we were going to do, if you watch that first video, is that we're going to maybe have some discussions, some talks on here about things that don't really fit in a homily, don't really merit, doing a multi-week adult education series on Wednesday evenings. And so that's where we're going to start today. And there was something I wanted to talk about. A couple weeks ago, we had the privilege and the honor for our parish of witnessing the ordination of Chris Brock to the diaconate, now Deacon Chris Brock. And hopefully in about a year he will be ordained a priest. We have on Saturday, tomorrow, I'm recording this on Friday, and so tomorrow, Friday the 17th, so tomorrow on Saturday we have ordinations to the priesthood. And it got me thinking, and we've been talking about a little bit just with people that I know, one-on-one conversations, things like that. What is it that priests do all day? This kind of focus on the priesthood right now. What is the life of a priest like? And so I thought I would maybe take a moment to kind of answer some questions that people have asked me, kind of provide a little bit of insight on, like I said, just what it is exactly that we do all day. Because most people, they see us for an hour or so on Sunday, maybe a half hour on a weekday, maybe they come to confession every once in a while. And that's really maybe all they see, a priest. And so, again, what do we do? And the first thing we do, the first thing kind of what being a priest is like and what a priest does is, in a lot of ways, we do things that are very similar to what everybody else does, right? It seems like there is an endless amount of laundry that I'm doing. I mean, not really, I do laundry once a week, but it seems like it takes up a lot of time. Grocery shopping, preparing food, eating food, obviously, maybe I eat a little bit too much of it, but all the kind of like normal things. We pay taxes, so we have to prepare our tax returns. That's kind of been on my mind lately too. But kind of just the normal things that people do, kind of the normal day-to-day kind of tasks, the normal sort of things that, occupy a lot of our time. Priests do all that too. We don't necessarily have, I think a lot of people, I think that we have people that do that stuff for us. So I have people ask me like, well, the person who cooks for you at the rectory, what do they, I don't have anybody that cooks for me at the rectory. I cook for me at the rectory. And so, like I said, we do kind of a lot of those normal things. When we want to get down to what does a priest do, though, that is kind of unique to being a priest, that's specific to the life of a priest, the answer to that is that it varies, because the priesthood can be lived out in a number of different ways. And so you have priests that are parish priests, like me, and that's kind of most priests, especially most priests that people are going to interact with on a day-to-day basis. But there are other things, too, that priests do, like some priests work in the chancery. Some priests work full-time in the chancery, like Monsignor Winslow. He's our vicar general, and he works full-time in the chancery as the vicar general, and he has certain tasks that he carries out regarding the governance of the diocese. Now, he does go to parishes, he does confirmations in parishes, he does visits to parishes and things like that. It's not like he's never, anywhere near the parishes, but his full-time job is in the chancery, doing that, governing the diocese, making sure that the diocesan institutions and everything are working properly and functioning properly. Some people work in the tribunal. Maybe they work there part-time, maybe they work there full-time, reviewing annulment cases and legal things that have to do with the diocese and with people in the diocese. And so there's things like that. Some priests teach. Father Kauth is the rector of our local seminary. And so his job is there both in terms of administration, but also in terms of kind of pastoring the souls of those seminarians and things like that. And so he does that. Father Bittner as well is the spiritual director there, and that's his primary job. Again, they visit parishes, they do things in parishes, but their primary job is in the seminary. Some priests work, not anybody that I know, but some priests work in what's called the diplomatic corps. And so there are priests that kind of work for the Vatican, because the Vatican, remember, is kind of runs the universal church, but is also a kind of government too. And so there are priests that work, in those offices as well. I can't really tell you much of what they do because I really don't know, but it doesn't really involve me very usually. So, but they're involved in that sort of thing, international relations and things with the churches like that. Some priests have kind of split their time between multiple things. Father Gober, for example, is a pastor of St. Leo's Catholic Church in Winston-Salem, but he's also our vocations director. So part of his time is there with the vocations director, with the seminarians, and part of his time is at the parish. And so what a priest does, and then that's not even to mention priests who are monks, priests who are friars, and they're what they do is different still from what I've talked about already. And so the answer to what does a priest do is, it's hard to say, really. There are some things that are common to all priests, obviously saying Mass and things like that, and we'll get into that later. But the only person that I can really answer for, the only person I can say, what does a priest do all day, is I can answer for myself. And I can say, what is it that I do all day? What does my kind of time look like? That's still kind of a hard question, though, because it depends on the day. It depends on the time of year. During penitential season, like Lent and Advent, we're doing kind of more, preparing for Christmas and Easter, but also we're doing more maybe confessions, we're doing more things like that. During the summer, the load, there's still a lot going on, but it's a little bit lighter than it is during the year because a lot of people are out of town. And so even that kind of depends, but I'll try to give you a little bit of an idea if you're interested. If you're not interested, you can obviously stop watching this, but I'll give you an idea of what it is that what I do in a day, or kind of how that averages out, so to speak. So the first thing, and the most consistent thing in my day, and in, I would say, most priest days, if not every priest day, is I offer Mass at least once per day. Some days, like Thursdays, when Father Francis, our parochial vicar, is not here, that's his day off, I'll offer 2 Masses. I'll offer a 9 o'clock and our noon Mass. Some days when there's maybe a funeral, I'll offer maybe the 9 or the noon and then the funeral. Or if there's a wedding on a Saturday, offer maybe the vigil and the 9 o'clock and the wedding. On Sundays, we offer at least 2 Masses, sometimes 3, depending on which one of us has kind of the more Masses. There's 5 Masses between 2 priests, so one of us has 2, one of us has 3. So the Mass is really this kind of constant in our lives, and it really is the most important part, or it should be the most important part of our lives. Our priesthood, the priesthood, is dedicated and geared towards this Eucharistic reality of bringing the Eucharist to the people and offering the Eucharist to God the Father. And so that is the most important thing we do, or at least it should be the most important thing that we do every day, and it should be the central part of our day and the central part of our priesthood. Most days, too, here at St. Vincent de Paul, I would say a little over half the time, because obviously it's divided between me and the vicar, but most days I hear at least an hour of confessions. We have confessions every weekday from 5 to 6, and then on Saturday from 6 to 7, and I would say most of those days, the time for hearing confessions is full. It's not like we sit there for an hour and we hear 2 or 3 confessions. It's when we get there's usually a line, and the line usually kind of goes until at least, I would say on most weekdays, until at least 5:50. Sometimes we go over, and sometimes you're in the confessional, you don't necessarily leave at 6, you're in there until 6:05, 6:10, 6:15, sometimes during Lent and Advent, 6:30, or maybe even 7. Sometimes those lines get really long during those times of year, which is great, which is wonderful. But that's part of our time too. During confession and during Mass, one of the things that we do is we will kind of preach or teach or give counsel. Now, I don't always give counsel in confession. Some people have asked me, how do you know when to, give advice or give counsel or something like that in confession? And my answer is, to the lay people who ask me how I do it, and to seminarians or younger priests who ask me if I have any advice, I say, if you feel like you have something good to say, if the Spirit moves you, so to speak, then say it. If you don't, then don't. You don't have to kind of come up with something, and just kind of waste people's time with just talking for the sake of talking. But if you have something good, if you feel like you have something worthwhile to say, then say it. And that's usually what I do. So if you've come to confession to me and I've just kind of, after you're done confessing your sins, I give you your penance, and I don't really give a lot of counsel, is probably because I didn't really have anything that I thought was worthwhile to say. If I've, talked your ear off a little bit in confession, which I usually don't do, but maybe I have sometimes, it's because I at least thought it was something useful and profound. So you be the judge, you determine whether it was. But in most masses we preach, Sunday masses we're required to preach, weekday masses we don't have to preach, but usually we do. We do most of the time preach on those weekday masses too. Also, we kind of are, like on Wednesdays right now, we're doing the series on friendship this summer, and so there's a lot of preparation for that. Looking at the readings of the day, looking at the readings for Sunday. Usually most priests will start kind of a little bit of prep for their Sunday homily on Monday or Tuesday of the week before. So they have a little bit of time to reflect on it, and that takes up a decent amount of time, or at least it should, to give a prayerful but also studious look into the readings. The weekday masses, obviously it's a little bit shorter. We don't have time to spend hours. And if you've heard me preach on weekdays, you can tell I didn't spend hours usually on that one, but also just kind of reading and preparing and praying so that hopefully if somebody needs good counsel, good advice in the confessional, hopefully something will come to mind. And so there's that kind of, there's preparation for a lot of those things, behind the scenes preparation for those. Also, for my part, not necessarily every week, certainly not every day, but a reasonable amount of time, I meet with people for spiritual direction. Sometimes they meet with me regularly if they feel like they need kind of regular spiritual direction, and that's great if they do. And we'll kind of meet, spiritual direction, we kind of talk about their prayer life, talk about things that are going on in their life, talk about spiritual struggles, spiritual success, things are going well, things are going badly. Sometimes it's just somebody needs to talk about something, and it's not going to be a regular thing, but they just need to come, and they schedule an appointment, and they come, and we talk about maybe some difficulty in their lives, some difficulty they have in praying, some struggle they're having maybe in their family or at work or whatever it is, and we'll sit down and we'll talk about that for maybe an hour and a half, something like that, and that takes a little bit of preparation too, hopefully, to give people hopefully good advice as moved by the Spirit. We also have liturgically, again, going back to liturgy, I didn't necessarily organize this that well, but we have on Fridays, and so in a couple of hours, I have to go set up and expose the Blessed Sacrament for our Holy Hour, and then at the end of the Holy Hour do benediction. As I mentioned in the first video, if you didn't watch that one, then you're hearing it now. We want to expand the amount of adoration that we're doing, so keep an eye out for that, but also that's going to be more that we're doing. More exposition of the Blessed Sacrament, more benediction with the Blessed Sacrament, and more adoration of the Blessed Sacrament too, and preparation and kind of cleaning up afterwards, so to speak. Here at St. Vincent de Paul, in addition to that, we have, just down the road, here we have Pineville Hospital, which is a pretty good-sized hospital. They just built a huge new wing there, and they get people from all over Charlotte. They get people even from South Carolina, because we're kind of right on the border. And so I would say we do a lot of hospital visits to anoint people. And so that's kind of, and remember earlier I said it's kind of hard to say what one day looks like, because there was a day last week where I got a call to go visit somebody in the hospital. Before I left to go visit them, I got another call from the chaplain saying, there's another person that you need to go visit, and they're in the room right next door to the one you're already coming to see, just want to let you know. And then I anointed those people, and then on the way back, I got a call from the chaplain again, and had to turn around and go anoint a third person. This week, I haven't had any calls to the hospital at all. And so it really depends. I would say on average, though, if you kind of average it out, because sometimes I've had 5 calls in a day, sometimes I've had 2 weeks with none, I would say it averages out to 4 or 5, or maybe 3 to 5 hospital visits, or home visits sometimes, to anoint somebody. 3 to 5 a week. Sometimes they're really heavy weeks, and there's a lot of it. Sometimes, like right now, there's just not a whole lot. The winter seems to have a little bit more than the summer, but I don't know if that's just kind of a sense that I have, or if that's really true. But we do get here, and also we'll cover if there's not a priest available, or if they're busy, or somebody's on vacation or something, we'll cover anointings and hospital visits at Maine and at Presbyterian and other local hospitals as well, I think I've been to most of them, and nursing homes as well, assisted living facilities. We cover a lot of those as well. We do marriage prep, preparing couples to get married. And so we have those meetings for them, to give them counsel. The priests do that, the deacons, our deacons do that as well. And we kind of share that load amongst each other, and so it's a fairly light load for the individual priest or deacon, but there is quite a bit of involvement in that as well. And then also obviously doing the marriage prep, but then doing the marriages. And we've had a lot of marriages lately. I think in the past month I've done 5 or 6 in the past month. So quite a few weddings, which is wonderful. It's a great gift for the church, a great gift for those couples, and a great gift even for our parish as well. And so pray for those couples who are in preparation, pray for those couples who have gotten married recently. But there is quite a bit of that too. Also, something that varies quite a bit varies with anointing is funerals. And so there have been weeks where we've had 3 or 4 funerals in one week. There have been weeks where we have 0 funerals. I would say we average about 1 or 2 funerals a week. Again, just kind of depending on what's going on. Sometimes we've had more than 1 funeral in a day. But in this past week, for example, we haven't had any. I think it was about a week and a half ago was the last funeral that we had here at St. Vincent de Paul. So that just kind of depends too. On Saturdays, we have baptisms, usually after the morning Mass. Sometimes we'll have baptisms during Mass, especially the 2 o'clock Spanish Mass on Sunday. But baptisms, I would say we average a couple baptisms a week. Again, some weeks we have 0, some weeks we have 2 or 3. It just kind of depends. And so, all that's a little bit up in the air too. We've been getting more and more baptisms. I think some people who put it off during COVID, same thing with the weddings. I think some people who put it off during COVID are kind of coming back now and wanting to get all of that taken care of, which is, again, it's a blessing for us. We have, at St. Vincent de Paul, we also have a very active youth group. Up until recently, our Faith Formation Director, Riley Provo, and I were basically running the youth group. We recently hired Daniel Lee, who is our youth minister, but I still go to youth group most times when it's meeting. I'm not really as involved in it, but I still, like to be there, like to attend. But sometimes I'll wander off to take care of something else if I need to do something else in the evening. So, but there's the youth group. We other little kind of things around the parish, like blessing holy water. If the holy water, I don't know what to call it, the holy water tank in the back of the church is empty, we'll fill that up, or somebody else will fill it up, and we'll bless the holy water. Blessing religious articles that people bring to the office, or people bring us after Mass, things like that. Kind of little things like that. Somebody who just got a new car, I blessed their car on Wednesday. We also do adult education. I kind of talked about that a little bit when we were talking about preaching and counsel and confession and things like that. But we also do adult education, so we're doing the Friendship Series this summer. So there's not only those talks on Wednesday evening, which I encourage you to come to, but there's also the research and the preparation before that, which takes a couple of hours, to kind of do that research, to prepare that talk, to prepare something that is, at least I hope, worth listening to, not a waste of the people's time who show up. So there's also a lot of behind the scenes things that we do as priests that are not necessarily as public. We pray the Liturgy of the Hours. Priests, deacons, bishops, and religious are required to pray the Liturgy of the Hours, and I'll do a video about that sometime too, if you're curious as to what that is. But it's set prayers throughout the day that we do. Usually do them, maybe go down to the chapel, or just even in my office, or at home, that we'll do the prayers in the evening. But those set times, it's at least 5 times a day that we're to do those prayers. There are 7 hours, but we're required to do at least 5 of them, but you can do all 7 if you want to. Like I say, priests, deacons, bishops, religious are required to do it. Lay people can do it. I encourage you to do it, and like I said, we'll do a video about Liturgy of the Hours and maybe talk a little bit more about how to do that if that's something you're interested in. But that's something that we kind of do behind the scenes. Personal prayer. And personal prayer, hopefully everybody who's watching this has personal prayer. They pray the rosary, they go to the chapel maybe, they go to the church sometimes maybe and just pray quietly, do devotional reading and things like that. And I'm hoping that each one of you does, and if somebody's watching this and you don't, I encourage you to, please do. But for a priest, it's even more important that we do it, because the priest is not supposed to be kind of just an administrator, just somebody sitting at a desk and doing office work and things like that and just kind of carrying out functions. We're supposed to be bringing people to God because we have a closeness with God. It is through that personal prayer, along with administering the sacraments, but through that personal prayer, which is so important, it's through that we get closer to God, so that hopefully we can bring you closer to God. Our preaching that we do is not just about study, but it's about speaking of an experience that we've had, an authentic experience that we've had through our prayer, through our lives. That's not to say, though, that study isn't important. So there is that study as well, not just homily prep and things like that, like practically, like I need to preach this Sunday, I need to give this class on Wednesday, and so I'm going to do research, I'm going to study for that, but just general studying of the faith, so that we can be sure that not only do we continue learning the rest for the rest of our lives, which all of us should be trying to do, but that we don't forget stuff that we lost, that we already learned in seminary, which for me, seminary was about 11 years ago, and it's easy to kind of, when you're over a decade past, it's easy to kind of forget stuff. So we're constantly brushing up on things, constantly studying those things, or at least we should be. There's also, just especially as a pastor, there's also a lot of just kind of administrative things that we have to do. I feel like I spend most of my time some days just signing my name to things. Baptismal certificates, confirmation certificates, checks, all kinds of contracts with, the lawn people, contracts with all these other people that, come in to take care of our campus and our facilities. Just signing my name over and over and over again. I read what I sign. I'm not just blindly signing, but there's a lot of just signing my name, a lot of paperwork. Once a week I go to Costco to buy flowers for the church. All kinds of things, doing these videos, and now I just bought some editing software, so I don't really know how to use it yet, but hopefully if you keep watching these videos, they'll slowly get better as I learn how to do it. But again, that's kind of taking a little bit of time too, so that's one of the things that we do a lot. And so I think, and that's, I'm sure there's other things. I'm sure once I turn this video off, I'm going to kind of think of things. Oh, why didn't I say that? I should have said that. But that's, what I got when I was taking notes earlier, what I could kind of think of what priests do. Oh, there's other kind of off-campus things that we do that I don't necessarily do here at St. Vincent de Paul, providing coverage for other priests. If a priest goes out of town, well, somebody still has to hear confession, somebody still has to say mass. So it's not unusual for us to go cover for other priests. If you come here, you've probably seen when Father Francis or I are out of town, another priest, Father Basil, very often covers the 5 o'clock on Sunday when one of us is out of town on a weekend. But we go and cover other places too. Hearing confessions other places, especially during those penitential seasons. Sometimes if there's somebody that I know but wasn't a parishioner here and they're having a funeral somewhere else, sometimes other priests will come to go to funerals at different parishes too if they happen to know the person. And so there's things like that off campus. I've preached retreats off campus at parishes or for organizations from around the diocese, and so that's something that we do too, go give talks like that. And so that's, like I said, I'm sure there's other things. I'm sure there's other things I'm just not really thinking of right now. But I think you take away, there's a lot of things to being a priest. What does a priest do? And the answer is a lot of different stuff. And some of the things we're not good at, hopefully. Some of the things we are good at. I hope I'm good at one or two of the things that I mentioned in this video. But these are all things that we're called to do, all the things that hopefully we can do successfully and get better at throughout our lives by the grace of God. And so if you wanted a little bit of an insight on what priests do, there it is. And we'll keep these, if you're interested, and we keep getting people watching these videos, we'll keep them coming for you to hopefully provide maybe some insight into certain things or some help with certain things that maybe, like I say, we don't cover during homilies or we don't cover during adult education. God bless and have a wonderful day.